this. Yeah. Okay, good to go. Hey everybody, welcome to a very special edition of the Night Writer podcast. I'm very happy to be joined by a special guest, Brenden from MasterTalk. Brenden, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course, Christina, it's great to be here.
So you have a YouTube channel called MasterTalk. I'll put a link in the description below. You specialize in sort of helping people to master the art of public speaking. Is that correct?
You got it.
So just to go back to the beginning, why did you decide to start the YouTube channel?
Absolutely. So the story begins in university, Christina. I used to do these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So other guys my age were playing football or rugby or footy or, all the other different sports out there. It wasn't really for me, right? But I applied that same competitive spirit to presentation. So I know this sounds odd, but for 3 years, my entire university degree, I presented hundreds of times and coached dozens of people on their communication skills. Then after I got a job in the corporate world, kind of just asked myself a simple question, which is how do I make a difference in the world? That's when the idea for MasterTalk came, because I realized a lot of the communication content on YouTube is rubbish. You hear advice like, oh, Christina, you should be yourself and get up on stage. And I said, what the heck do you do with this nonsense? So I started making videos in my mother's basement, thought it was a stupid idea, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I know what you mean about looking at YouTube, hoping to find help, and then there's actually nothing there. So I really admire the fact that you kind of decided to make your own content, stuff that you yourself would want to watch if you were someone else watching it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm a writer, and I think that my channel is for other writers if they're interested in the writing industry. And I think that a lot of us are introverts, so we don't really volunteer ourselves to talk publicly unless we have to. And for me, I work in the theatre, or I did pre-pandemic. And whenever one of my plays was on, usually we'd have a Q&A afterwards just to get feedback. And I would have to then answer these questions about my play. And that for me was the one thing that I always dreaded, just sitting there and talking, having other people ask you questions, and then I'm going to have to kind of talk about, even though it's my work, I don't know, I just got really nervous, and all the spotlight was on me, literally, like in the theatre, and I just didn't like being caught out or put on the spot, especially if it's something that they're going to criticize. If it's my work that they'll criticize, I don't know how to answer without feeling really nervous. I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what would your top tip be to just kind of relax without having a sip of brandy beforehand or something?
Yeah. I definitely don't recommend the brandy.
Yeah.
But what I'll say, okay, let's start with the beginning, because you mentioned that a lot of people are listening right now are introverts. So let's address that. One of the biggest myths that I get is that introverts are bad speakers. That's completely not true. And I'll explain. I explain it actually in a 10-minute video on the channel, but I'll give you 3 examples from that video. There are 3 key advantages that introverts have as speakers that make them much easier to coach that no introvert is aware of. So I'm happy to share that. 1, introverts are a lot better at pausing and silencing. Because true introverts spend more time on average not talking or reading a book or in different environments, they spend more time listening. Right? They spend more time listening to what the other person is saying, what the other person is trying to do. They're able to tailor their message a lot better and pause effectively during their presentations. So it's a lot easier to get an introvert to pause for a couple of seconds than an extrovert like me, because you can tell I like to talk a lot. So because I talk a lot, it's very difficult for me to pause because I hate that space in the middle. Right? Whereas you're kind of just listening there and you're like, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with this pausing.
Right. I know. Okay, yeah, carry on. I'll explain it at the end. Okay. Yeah,
right. And then the third thing, so we talked about pausing very effectively, and the second thing we talked about is this idea that you're better listeners than we are. But there's a third advantage too that introvert speakers have, and that advantage is that they're less polarizing as speakers. So I'll give you an example. Someone like a Gary Vaynerchuk, who has huge social media following, you either like the guy or you don't. So I'm a big fan of Gary's speaking style and the content and advice he gives, but a lot of people aren't. They go, wow, this guy's way too aggressive. He's out of control. But if we compare him to a speaker like Brene Brown or Seth Godin or Susan Cain or some other introverted speaker who's also very successful, nobody goes up to those people and says, I hate Brene Brown, I hate Seth Godin, I hate Susan Cain. There's nobody who does that, because introverted speakers actually appeal to a wider group of people. So if you understand just those three skills, makes perfect sense now why an introvert would be much better equipped to master communication than an extrovert would. They just need to work on a couple of other things. But the point that I want to drive is not whether you're introverted or extroverted, but are you willing to learn from the other? So if you're an introvert, I challenge you to take a bit more risk, to be a bit more vocal, to be a lot more, to take a bit more space. Not too much, just a bit. But the opposite is also true. If you're extrovert like me, are you spending more time listening to other people? Are you spending more time pausing, using a lower vocal tone variety so that you can appeal to a larger group of people?
That's really interesting. I did not think of that at all, about the whole pausing and listening thing, because this is the thing. The reason why I was laughing earlier when you said that I'm happy to sit and listen is because I get told as feedback on my podcast that I talk too fast, like really fast.
I agree.
Thanks. So I can't help that. I mean, I want to, and then I remember and I have to slow down. And I don't know if it's because I'm reading from a script. I just read really quickly, and that's just me. Or is it because I'm nervous and I'm just spilling everything out like word vomit? I have no idea. What would your advice be? Would it be to just kind of think more about what I'm saying, or just slow it down? Or is it because I'm an extrovert, secret extrovert? Not really.
Right. I think you're a secret extrovert. That's what I think. Because most introverts I've spoken to, the real introverts, I don't think you're an introvert, but I think most introverts out there, no, definitely they don't have this issue. So anyways, let me break it down. So there's two parts to this. One is reading off the script. Absolutely. When you read off a script, you just want to get through everything.
Yeah.
And then you want to move. Right. So I definitely don't recommend script, especially in podcast conversation. As you get better with this, and it's okay what you're at, like episode 4, right, or something. Right. So
well, no, usually it's just me and the microphone. That's the thing. It's not, when I'm reading off a script, it's like a topic thing, and then I have to have everything planned. Otherwise, I just lose the points I'm trying to make.
That's fair. Okay, so that's one part. But the other part, okay, and how you fix pace, is this idea of dinner conversations versus presentations. So here's what I mean. When you're in school, okay, your goal is to get in a presentation that you give at school or at work and get out of it as quickly as possible. So our tendency is to speak really quickly in those environments. But let's say you haven't seen an old friend of yours for 5 years and you're having a dinner with them. Okay. Would you want that dinner to last a couple of minutes? Probably not.
Depends on
right? I mean,
well,
I'm saying old friend you haven't seen in a long time. So somebody like you really care about. For some reason, they were in a different country. They like moved away for work, and you finally get to see them in person after like 4 years.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's very common now with COVID, since I've been separated from my friends for like 7 months, and I finally get to see them on Sunday. But anyways, the point is, in that environment, you want the moment to last.
Yeah.
So I think what we need to do when we think about pace is we need to transition from the conditioning that we got in presentations, which is, I hate presentations, it's a chore, I need to get in, get out as quickly as possible, to the dinner conversation, making every little second count. And when you do it that way, and you start to savor the moment and really take your time within the same way I'm doing right now as I'm speaking to you, then in that type of environment, you'll speak a lot slower and you'll start to align your regular speaking voice with your presentation voice. And that's how you fix pace. So for you, what I would say is the best way to fix pace is to literally re-listen to your own podcast, maybe one of the solo episodes, and redo the podcast 20% slower. And then re-listen to both, and then do it again 30% slower, 40% slower. And then you don't even need to make a decision. Go to your number one fan for the podcast, probably your mom or something, and then give her the first version where you're speaking like you usually do, and the second version, ask her what she thinks. Go, which one do you like better? I guarantee 100% of them will go second version sounds better.
Yeah. the much slower one. So basically, just if you're going in to do a presentation, so say any one of our writers who are listening, or me, we write this TV series or a movie, and we have to pitch to Netflix or Amazon, which is really daunting. How would you, rather than just get in there and everything and come out, we have to go in there and just try and enjoy the moment of talking about our story and deliver that kind of excitement. But I think the worry is if we see them losing interest and we see them kind of, you can just tell when someone's attention is dropping, and then you panic and then you start to just rush through it even faster because you want to get done. I know that. I've been in situations like that. What would your advice be if you see someone's attention dropping? Like, what do you do that's not overly dramatic to cause a distraction?
Right. You know what I coach my clients on that I'm happy to share as secrets for all of you who are listening is you want to prepare for the worst case scenario. So if you're scared of that, you come up to me and you're like, Brenden, I'm scared of this. Executives, they're going to lose attention. I say, perfect, Christina. You're going to do a presentation in front of me and 10 of other people in my group, and we're going to trash you. Survive that. We're going to trash you. So that means like we're going to like heckle at you. We're going to tell your presentation isn't worth anything. And then you survive that. And I guarantee you that executive board reading will be a joke. That's one piece of it. Always do the harder thing. If you're scared of prepared presentations, oh no, I have to present a subject of a film, something I've been writing for years,
Yeah.
then practice doing presentations you have zero expertise in. So one easy example I can give you on my YouTube channel that you can easily practice for free every day, it's called the random word exercise. You pick a random word, camera, and I'm happy to demonstrate it, tree, drawer, floor, and you just make random presentations. 1 minute each, 5 minutes a day, 6 months, you're cured. Actually, 6 weeks probably, if you're really consistent with it. Because if you can present something random, like I've gotten some really bizarre words, trust that I'm not allowed to say on the show, like really like inappropriate words. If you can create like presentations out of those words, when you go back to your movie, your film, your script that you spent years honing, I mean, that script, it's yours.
Yeah.
That presentation becomes a joke, right? And then the third thing that I'll add, just as a little bonus, it's more of a mindset trick. When you get to a level like mine, where I've presented so many times, the mindset you bring into a presentation is different. So the writer, that you described, let's say the archetype who's listening, goes into a Netflix, room and they're scared. They're like, oh no, I wonder what they're going to think of me. I really hope they take the script. Whereas somebody like me, the mindset I take is, who cares if they take this script? This is the best script in the world. HBO, there's so many different places I can go to give my show. They should be honored to have me in that room. They should be honored to have you in that room, that you're even considering Netflix to give your show to. When you have that kind of mindset, you just walk in, you do your best, and if they're heckling you, too bad for them. I mean, you're the one who gave them your time, not the other way around.
Yeah. So basically, just have that kind of cocky attitude of, I've got this.
Not cocky. I mean, if anyone should believe in your script, it should be you.
Yeah. No, I mean, because this is the thing I find I do, but then when you're talking to other people or pitching it to other people, like producers in particular, they find something and they pick apart stuff, and then they start throwing all these questions at you. And I think it's when you get caught off guard, then you think, oh, wait a minute, I didn't think of this, and I'm not prepared for this question, and you stand there like gaping fish. I like think of something quickly.
Yep, let's fix that too. I call this bulletproofing your presentation. That's why I highly recommend. Here's the thing that most people miss in public speaking. As you described, you're alone, you're in this dark corner of your room, and then you get a call from the gods of Netflix, and then you have to go there, and then you're worried, you're panicking, and then you get slaughtered with questions. That's not how you win in life. The way you win in life is your team of writers who work together as a team to make all of your shows successful. Yep. Right? So if I got Billy, Christina, Joelle, and Brenden, we're all working together. Our goal is to make all of us successful. So what do? We question our own scripts. We pretend to be producers. Okay, Christina, why don't you pitch me your script for 30 minutes? And then I'll ask you every question I can think of. I'll rip apart every little line item so that you're perfect. Then the next person will go, well, actually, Christina, I've worked with this producer here, do this, next. And then when you get into the room and they ask you all those questions, you've already answered them to somebody else. That's how you need to start thinking about public speaking.
Okay. Following off on that, actually, what would you do if you're in a group of people as a team presenting it or pitching it to, like a movie or a script or anything to someone? You're obviously got it down, it's fine, you deliver the pitch perfectly, but then it's someone else's turn and it just doesn't go very well. But you're a team, so if one of you takes a hit, you all take the bullet.
Exactly.
What would your recommendations be? Do you step in and rescue, or you just leave it, or you just better luck next time?
Once again, symptom versus the core issue, right, Christina? I would solve that before that presentation even happens. For me, because I always like to be a part of group presentations. I love it. And I used to do a lot of them in university. My philosophy is simple: if one of us sinks, we all sink.
Yeah.
And if all of us rise, we all rise, right? So for me, it's no. As the leader, because you're the leader of the team now, since you're listening to me, so I'm giving you that onerous, that responsibility, and everyone else is listening. It's your job as the leader of the group to make sure that everyone's comfortable presenting their parts. That's one part of it. So what I always like to do on teams, I don't even say I'm presenting this part. No, I go, Julia, Christina, Danielle, what are you all comfortable presenting with the most out of this entire presentation? Then they go, person A, person B, person C. Okay, I want to present this part. Perfect. I'll just present the rest. That's one thing, right? Best presenter in the group should just take the hardest parts that everyone else isn't comfortable with, right? Save face for everyone else. Easy. Second part is, how do you answer questions? There's actually a system that I developed that you can easily apply for any of your teams. Call it the Q&A master. So what the Q&A master strategy is essentially is you have one person who's the best at answering questions on the team, can bullshit anything. Okay, which happened to be me on my team. But once again, I wasn't the smartest guy on the team. My friends would come up with the solutions, I would sell them. That's kind of how it worked. So how Q&A Master works is when people start bombarding us with questions, I funnel all the questions. So somebody says a question, I look at the team, and whoever has their hands in front of their bodies wants to answer the question. Whoever has their hands behind their back doesn't want to answer the question. So all I have to do as the master is I look at everyone's hands, I see whose hands are in front, and I pick them. I go, oh, Christina, you want to answer this question, but I already know you want to answer it because your hands are in front.
Okay,
right?
body language then.
Yeah, body language. So it's easy for me to check. But here's the punchline. If nobody has their hands in front of their bodies, that means you have to answer as the master because you're the best at answering questions, right? That's one strategy you can apply. The other strategy is section by section. So if you get a question on that specific section, then you have to say it. So let's say I'm the financials person. Let's say I ran all the numbers on the scripts to see how much money the producer would make. I have to answer all the financial sections. If I get a question on characters, how did you make this character choice? How did one person should be an expert on characters, or however it's divided in your world, I would do it like that. That's two strategies.
That's really interesting, actually, because during one of these Q&As, usually when it's a question on characters or anything, we don't know who's going to answer. Is the actors or is it the writer? And then they usually look at me or I'm looking at them like, no, actually, this is your question. But they're all like, I'm going to throw it to Christina. And then I'm there with the microphone like, okay, I have to answer this now. But then if the actor has a different answer and you're disagreeing as a team, it just looks really unprofessional.
Exactly. And it's your job as the leader, right? Always take responsibility, Christina, right? I don't want you delegating to anyone else. So you're the leader now. So it was your fault because you didn't tell the actor beforehand, hey, for character questions, you should answer them and that way that person's prepared. So that way when the presentation happens, then you don't have that issue. Yeah. Right? It's always up to the leader of that group. And leader doesn't mean you're a superhero with a cape. It just means you're the person who decides to be that leader. It's your job to mitigate all of that risk. Hey guys, let's all sit together as a team. Let me pick everyone's brains. What's everyone's experience been with a table like HBO? What kind of questions do they ask us about? Let's put it all on the table. It'll take you 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Actor A goes, hey, Christina, actually, this producer here, he asked this. Let's make a list. Boom, 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 sticky notes everywhere. Okay, now let's categorize. Josh, which one do you want to answer? Which one do you want to? You go in like an arsenal. You clean everything out. Done.
So basically just prepare beforehand.
Oh yeah, like mitigate. What the best leaders do, Christina, is that they understand the worst case scenarios up front, so that when all of those are solved, it can't get any worse than that. It
Okay.
can't get. So if you've considered all the options, you know all the producers, you know everything they're gonna ask. No, you could just walk in there and be like, it can't get worse than that, and it never does.
I will definitely remember that for next time because
Right. And by the way, if it does get worse than that, it means you did not prepare for the worst case scenario.
but it's tricky to know what people are going to throw at you. That's the thing.
Okay, here's a trick. Here's a way to know that. You won't know that alone, but as a group, you can figure that out.
Really?
Right? Of course. Of
Even with
course.
like an audience, because I mean, with the theatre, it's a test audience, and they're just the general public. We don't know what they're going to pick interpretation they're going to pick from my play. So then they throw out things, and I'm like, I didn't write that, but that's a good idea. And then I have to think.
But that's why it's your job to run 25 different interpretations before the real show.
Okay.
Right? So,
Yeah.
okay, so let's say you've spent 3 years working on the script, okay, or a year, 6 months, 12 months, and you care about this script. Your job as the person who needs to get this funded to make your dreams come true, you don't practice at the main event.
No.
It's like theaters. You don't practice at the show. No, you do rehearsals, you figure we need to start applying the lessons we already know in presentations. Right?
Yeah.
So if the argument you're bringing is, well, Brent, I know what they're going to say. Well, what do you mean you don't know what they're going to say? Go get a group of people that's not them and have them rip apart your script. Every time I've applied the strategy in the last 100% of the time, I've nailed the presentation. You just need to be willing to do the interpretation. The only time I mess up my presentations, it hasn't happened anymore, is when I don't do that back end work. Right? So you need to start doing that with your groups. Because I want you to be successful. I want you to sign with Netflix, and then I can go, yeah, I know that girl.
Yeah, definitely full credit to you if I get any pitch done. Okay, so Hourglass is running up, but I just want to ask you something really quickly. Now that we are living in this kind of technological world where we have to present things more on Zoom and on screen, I guess what would your advice be if you're in a group and you can't really look at each other because you're looking at a screen and you don't know who's got their hand on their front or who's like that. How would you like delegate stuff like that and do online presentations and pitches?
Smart question. I've been thinking a lot about this too, Christina, about how to do this. Honestly, I think the only way to do it, there's two ways to do it. One is the section by section thing we talked about. You know, character question, Josh answers, non-character, Christina answers. That's an easy win. If I were to push this analogy further, what you want to do is have everyone on mute. I'm not sure if this is going to work 100%. It's just something that I kind of thought of for other people who've asked me this. Put everyone on mute, accept the Q&A master, and then have them private message you. Not huge messages, like a letter. So A for answer. So that way when everyone's muted, you don't hear their keyboards typing. And then as the master, since you see all the A's, you can like move the Zoom chat right in front of you and they can't see anything. You can easily go, A. Christina, would you like to answer this? Christina unmutes herself. Yeah, absolutely, Brenden. So this is what we've been seeing for the characters in this play. Actually, it's a lot easier, I think, online. So that way, A, done. Hey, Josh, do you want to answer this question about the plot? Yeah, of course, Brenden. Blah, 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 blah. So that's an easy way you can do that as the master. And obviously, if you get no A's, you answer the question.
Interesting.
I just thought of that right now, actually. I got to make a video on that. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, glad to see I gave you some inspiration.
No, it's good. This is kind of a new world for me. I've never had script writers ask me advice on public speaking. So
Really?
it's fascinating. Because I don't know, that's why I'm getting fired up. I was like, well, no, I just realized a lot of this isn't being applied in your industry. So I find that cool.
Yeah, because we actually got in touch through this kind of podcast matchmaking site called Matchmaker FM, but it's not a dating site. It's a podcast matchmaking.
Kind of wish it was. No, I'm kidding. That's just a joke.
And it's interesting actually, because I kind of thought I really wanted to have you on as a guest, but I was kind of thinking, well, what can I do that applies it to this channel and what I do? And then I realized that I need obviously help with talking and Q&As and interviews, and then there's pitching to all these things. So I think even though it's a creative world, there is a lot of corporate stuff that comes into it that you have to be aware of and practice, I guess.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to come on the show and be the first kind of international guest.
No problem, Christina. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun, actually.
Okay, so I will link a description in the description your YouTube channel, MasterTalk, Brenden from MasterTalk. And do you have an Instagram and social media and stuff?
I do, but you can find all of that on the YouTube channel. That's probably the best place to go.
Okay. So thanks for listening, guys. Until next time. Okay, stop recording now.